Soybeans rally after a new biofuel proposal and changes in energy prices due to a new war in the Middle East. Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, you are back here. I think before we touch anything related to the big soybean rally, I think we should touch the war. The Israel has attacked Iran with a preemptive attack toward nuclear facilities, all military facilities, and they also targeting some very specific individuals, which led to a higher crude oil price. And what's your overall view to the energy market?
Well, definitely after somewhat of a sleepy week here at this point with some other news in the ag side, definitely things picked up dramatically there late Thursday and into Friday with this, I wouldn't call it a sneak attack. Basically, there's been lots of jousting back and forth in that, but the extent of the Israelis attack and actually damaging some of their infrastructure and also their personnel, which is highly important too. Definitely set the tone here towards the end of the week after the USDA's crop report midweek, and then we end up having some negotiations in the U.S. and China earlier in the week too. So definitely a positive here about. Well, not so much a positive from the point of view of the grain markets. It's changed the dynamics of energy prices and also to some extent I think the general futures prices at this point with people looking around and the USDA's numbers this week didn't really provide us a lot of enthusiasm. Along with the fact that the U.S. and China had a 2 day, very extensive set of discussions, and they got their differences on rare earth materials and in that type of world, but they really didn't, after it was all said and done, dig much into the agriculture or even into the manufacturing differences here of importing things to the U.S. and the relative prices and things like that. So I think that's kind of set the tone earlier in the week for the defensive tone.
Yeah, so I think the big thing for the commodity markets this week was this new biofuel proposal sent out by the Trump administration. And so I think this is all behind the rally we had on Friday for soybeans. So how will you see this whole situation?
Oh, definitely. It was, well, the thing is interesting about it, they set up various ideas earlier this spring and that, and even the last few days here that the Trump administration was kind of reluctant to go along with the ethanol and well, coordinated effort they had earlier this spring between the ethanol and the U.S. Uh, oil producers, and that they had an idea that last year we were at 3.3 billion gallons of veg oils or various things being extended into renewable diesel, and they kind of proposed a 5.2 billion gallon relationship for this year. Well, interestingly enough, the administration kind of gave the idea that they were only going to look at it 4.6 billion in potential renewable, or excuse me, in veg oil type of stuff being mixed into the U.S. diesel fuel for renewable diesel, and even overnight last night when they were going to supposedly set out their tones on this thing, they really weren't promoting it. But this morning, the word was out that things were changing here, and it turns out that the the EPA's announcement actually had a number at 5.6. That was even slightly higher for this 2026. And actually, I think it was 2.85, I think it was, or 2.8 plus for 2027. So those were a dramatic scenario here. It took all morning before we got the official announcements on things, and bean oil was lock limit up, and beans were stronger, and things of that nature. From that standpoint, the real tricky part on this whole thing is going to end up being the impact of the expanded U.S. crush to reach that level. At the same time, we're going to produce a tremendous amount of soybean meal because for practical purposes here, when you have a bushel of soybeans that is in essence crushed and you produce meal and oil, and that, you're talking about 20% of the weight is soybean oil, and the balance of it is meal and some processing situations in that. And so we're going to have to figure out where we can be able to market some of these meals. But that wasn't in people's thoughts today. It was really caught them off guard that in essence, when people are looking for less than agreed upon level between the industry and between the crushers and the U.S. energy companies, it turned out to be more. And so that definitely is a positive for that particular market and that. And to some extent, maybe suggests that we've had some the soybeans have been trying to stay better than corn over the last week or excuse me, the last 2 or 3 weeks, and maybe we've seen a little of that maybe going to happen on the USDA's June 30th acreage report.
Yes. So what do you think? Do you think this momentum for soybeans will continue? Let's say in South America, there is news about a slowdown in the state of Paraná when it comes to the harvest. So do you think this momentum will continue?
Well, it's going to be a little tricky here because we're going to end up getting oh, maybe some more reactions. How quick this is going to happen. This really is only for ideas for 2026. Here we are, middle of 2025, so it's not going to immediately change uh, the processing ideas and building up stocks. For that, we have come off our highs from this last spring on seasonal basis, but uh, there's, like you say, it's the total ideas here are really something that's more impactful in the fall and into late in this year, looking at 2026. Um, Soybean processing and that it's a positive thing to have happened, but it we still have a long ways to go to figure out what size our crop's going to be and other things floating around here in the markets. But I kind of feel like because of the strength we've seen, that we could see prices swing back to recent highs here, and that on spot soybean prices accordingly. Wheat even got a little bit of enthusiasm going today. I think partly on some weather issues that continue to plague the southern plains, and that was had some 7, 8 inches in San Antonio. And I was just talking with a good contact down there today, and he's really bemoaning the fact that this year's wheat crop Looked one of the best ones he's seen in quite some time, and now with all this rain, it has really washed out the test weight and also things and just the quality of the crop, uh, uh, the moisture content in the fields, things like that. So, what was a $5 crop on the futures was maybe not going to even get uh, $3.50. At the cash price because of all the issues with the crop in his part of the world there in north east Texas.
Yes, so what do you think about the week ahead?
Well, the week ahead is going to be watching closely here about uh, what we might start to get on yields coming out of the Southwest. It looks like at this point we're starting to look like a forecast here in the central U.S. that we're going to have more warmth and less rains and that. But at the same time, we're also going to end up the heat, particularly west of the Mississippi at this point, still going to hit some crops out there that haven't had the moisture. That's this rain event that's been hitting Oklahoma and Texas has kind of diagonally went across Missouri and hit parts of eastern Illinois and on down to southern Indiana, places like that. So, weather-wise, we're going to be watching those closely along the way. The Of course, we're going to be keeping an eye on our overseas demand at this point, around the world here at this point. The people start to really look at South America for their soybeans and not so much corn at this point, but there is going to be some second crop corn starting to come on. I just got an update here in some of my wire services that this year's corn harvest in Brazil is only about 5.5% of second crop corn at this point versus last year we were like 15%. So part of this, I think, is happening because the price is so inexpensive at this point on a worldwide basis. I think that's the reason why the even the Brazilian producers are deciding, well, at this point, it can stay in the field and that, and hopefully we'll get some kind of reaction here, either from the U.S. weather conditions impacting our crops, or maybe some other issues floating around. The Black Sea at this point still is a very uh, areas on the east side of the Black Sea where the Russian wheat crops at and crops over there have still been on the dry side. There's the Ukrainians crop, maybe not as low beat up as last year, but the problem is that they did not plant as much. They really kind of lost uh, some of their fertilizers and seeds and stuff like that. They've lost some of that infrastructure out there. So they're planting what they have, but it's going to have to end up being a good year weather-wise for that to come through. So we've got lots of different things floating around out here at this point. Just even this week's USDA crop report, we had a positive jump in U.S. exports on corn, which somehow or other startled people in the business. I kind of felt that was pretty obvious to consider how strong our exports were up to this point. Actually, this week's numbers on sales were just like 5 million less than the total for the whole year, with 13 weeks left in the season. So that the key thing is, though, we do need a huge amount of shipments going on. We're probably 550 to 600 million shipments. We're going to have to still see some very hefty numbers coming out along that way. And then, as I mentioned before, the wheat crop results that we have in the U.S. is going to be watched very closely going forward. And if we start to hear that some of this early harvest in Texas and Oklahoma isn't doing as good as some of the projections, which The USDA's numbers earlier this week said we're pretty well the same as last month, and I'm not sure I would say that, but we'll see how things progress here. There has been some areas like Nebraska and the West Coast better conditions in the last month or so. So maybe we'll compensate for some poor crops in the southern plains. But what I can pick up from down that way, they're not very optimistic about their total bushels. They were real optimistic about a good crop, and now they're not.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll speak
You
next
bet.
week.
You bet. Sounds good. And we will keep an eye on what's going around the world in our own backyard. There's lots of things happening in the U.S. grain markets.